Most of the time, your drawing won't have a layer in it that you need or want to use. It's just something that happens. To eliminate this issue, I recommend that you start every new drawing with a template file that has your most common layers already put into it. Regardless of how you started your file though, you're going to need to make a new layer. I want to show you how. Let's open up a file, go to the Architectural Example Imperial Drawing. Now this file already has several layers in it, and that's great. Open up your layer manager, type in LA on the command line, or click on the layer manager button in the ribbon. And once you're here, you can create new layers. Making a new layer is pretty simple actually. Just come up to one of these buttons here. It's this one on the left. Click it, and it creates a new layer, and it starts off by calling it layer 1. Once you have a layer 1, it will make a layer 2, layer 3, etc. Now, the settings for that layer defaults to whichever layer you had selected at the time. At the time, I had the 0 layer selected, so it will copy all of the settings from that layer. Now, this is a good thing to keep in mind when you make a new layer, because you want to select the layer that has most in common with what's going to be in your new layer. That way you have to change less. So it's a time saver that way. Now to change the settings, any of the settings, you just click on them right here in the layer manager. To make a layer current, just double click it. This little green check means that that layer is current. To change the layer name, you can right click and select the rename layer or press the F2 key and type in the new layer name. Now, a lot of these columns of information can be quite long or wide. If I move my mouse up here and I get this little double arrow, I can drag it over left or right, and that will help me to get a better look at what's going on. If I double click when I'm right up there, it'll expand the width of it till it matches the widest part that we have. Now remember, your layer manager is a palette, so you can stretch out the sides if you need to. This will give you a little bit more room. And in fact, you can even turn off some of these columns if you don't want to use them. To get to some of the other settings for these different columns, make sure you don't have a command active, and then right click over the top of one of these column headings. Everything you see checked here is turned on. Now I can check this to turn them off, and now it saves some room. If you want them back on, just check them again. Every layer that you have can have a description, and I think it's a good idea to fill that out. In this case, we see a layer called Viewport, and it says it's for viewports set to no plot. That's another feature that we have right here. This is the plot feature. Right now, this one has a little red circle with a slash through it. That means anything drawn on that layer, even if it's turned on or thawed, it's visible, it won't print to your paper. That's a great thing to do with the viewport layer. It's also a great feature to add to construction lines. Anything you use to help you draw with that you need in your file, but you don't want to show it in your drawing. That's what that no plot will do. It's very useful. Now you can change layer settings, multiple layers at a time. So just select the different layers you want, pick one, and then hold down the Shift key, and it will pick everything in between that. Click somewhere else to unselect all of those, or you can just press and hold the Control key and select the layers that you want to change. Now you can turn them all off, turn them all back on. You can freeze them. You can change their colors, whatever it is that you would like to do. And this is handy because it allows you to change your file in a lot of different ways very quickly. You can also create layers that are automatically frozen the first time they appear in a new drawing or layout. That's what this option is right here. Now you might want to do this if you're working on an existing drawing and you're adding a new feature to it that needs a new layer. Turn that off, and what will happen now is whenever a new layout is made, that layer will automatically be turned off. So if I close this, I go to a layout, let me erase this one. If I go to create a new viewport, I just want to make one single viewport. When I do, all of my doors are turned off. As you can see, they're not in there. I can go into this viewport, open up my layer manager, and I'll get a few more columns for viewport settings. This tells me right here that this is frozen in the viewport. If I select it, my doors will come back on. and there they are. So you can isolate objects, hide objects by viewport through those viewport-specific settings. The nice thing about being able to do that is that I can have one set of line work, one model, but I may need to display it differently on multiple drawings. Well, this allows me to do that without having to draw new layers for specific reasons. I can use the same ones that have the information on it already that I need. I can just choose to not display it by freezing them in that specific viewport. And on the same note, you can also change things like color and line type by viewport only. That way you can make a construction line, a solid line, show up in one drawing, but then make that a hidden line in another drawing without having to change your drawing objects.